G'day, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, we shouldn't have that up straight away. That's my bad. Rip there. Welcome in, everyone, to the Australia's Tabletop Wargaming Network. My name is ScottyD, and tonight we have got an absolute banger stream for you. We're going to be doing the tournament preview for the Down Under 40k Major. It is great to have you all with us, and tonight we've got Alex the Greek joining us. How you doing, brother?
Good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, doing well, doing well. And one of the TOs for the tournament, the man behind Down Under 40k, doing a lot of other stuff within the scene as well. We have got Ben Way joining us. How you doing, mate?
Hello. Good. Thanks for having me.
No worries at all. So, if you haven't seen us do one of these tournament preview streams before, what we're going to be doing, we're going to be talking about the event, players that are in attendance, where it's happening, how many rounds, the meta of the event, the terrain as well is going to be pretty big in terms of our discussion tonight as well, much like it was for Dice Arcade GT, and a whole bunch of other things as well. I want to shout out to everyone in chat. Currently got Buy Lemon, Fiend Gaz, Palitech, Down Under 40k. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, if you guys are watching this on YouTube, we do this stream live the Monday before any large GTs or majors here in the Australian tournament scene, to give you guys a nice snapshot of what's going on in the country in terms of what's going on 40k wise, as well as also being included on the Down Under 40k podcast in audio format shortly afterwards as well. So we're going to kick right in, and considering, Ben, it's your first time joining us here on the ATWN, want to throw to you for a bit. Why don't you introduce yourself, talk a bit about what you do in terms of the hobby, what armies you play, how long you've been in the hobby, things like that, my friend.
Yeah, well, obviously, my name is Ben. I'm one of the co-founders and co-bosses of Down Under 40k. We do a lot of, if you haven't heard of us, we do a lot of community work and events and bit of content here and there where we dabble in content, which is that. And we obviously we're on now to talk about a bit of a major we've got coming up as well. But before we get into that, I play a fair few. Well, I don't play a fair few. I've got some big collections that I like to dabble in. Things like mainly my Xenos, like my Bugs and my GSC. Probably my first love. Sisters is another one. And they're like the main three factions I play, and kind of hop around between those. I love them. I used to be back into fantasy when I was a kid. That's a long story. Spent all my money on it, and basically now I got back into 40k around the beginning third of 8th, probably maybe beginning quarter of 8th edition. And started playing tournaments towards the end of probably towards halfway through 8th edition. I was just casually start off with, and loved the community, loved the whole vibe of being at an event and playing someone new, meeting someone new, and kind of sharing that thing, and kind of that sport. Met Dale at one of those tournaments, and that kind of basically went from playing Dale, getting beaten by Dale as well on that first game, which is worth a point.
Well, I mean, he hasn't lost since Uprising, right? And not even last Uprising.
No, that's right.
Before.
That's right.
So he's on a roll.
They ended up being Down Under 40k, and kind of all just went. Basically, I'm very deep now. I'm very deep into the point where I almost think there's like kind of no return for me now. Like that's kind of it. I'm locked in. But seriously, I tend to be one of those kind of people. When I do something, I kind of go probably a little bit too hard into it, if you know what I mean. So, it is. Yeah, you know how that is.
Oh, yeah. I completely get that, brother. Completely get it. Cool. So, as you said, it's Down Under 40k Major. Now, this is actually it's one of news. It's a huge event this early in the year as well. 105 players, I believe we've got locked in for it.
Yeah.
Which is massive.
Yeah, that's correct.
Absolutely massive.
It is big. It's funny, New South Wales, obviously been involved with like Down Under 40, the Down Under 40k circuit for basically what is kind of like the second full year, but the third kind of year it's run for now. And the OCC, which has just kicked off this year, kind of weird because last year in New South Wales, a bulk of the New South Wales events were from pretty much kicked off around about April and rolled through to about September. And we pretty much just finished off at CruitCon, then a little paddle at the end with Masters and Moab, I think. Do you know what I mean? Maybe before Moab last year. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It was all a lot earlier. Now, this year, it all seems to be the back end. New South Wales events, they're all the back end. It's all September, October. It is packed.
Yeah.
So to have this one feels like a little bit of an oasis for singles. There's a lot of teams and stuff happening before August. And that has been like an Australia-wide thing. We've had like the boys down in the Victoria and Tassie doing some team tournaments. We've had Josh McGowan again putting another coming back with more team tournaments, and that was only like literally 2 or 3 weeks ago. Like there are just, it is just, you know, like the team schedule seems to have taken over the first half this year, and then we're finishing strong in singles. And boy, there are a lot of events in New South Wales, let alone Australia, coming up at that back end of the year.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's important to mention for context for those of you who aren't in Australia, around May every year we have the Australian Team Championships. So that kind of means that what Ben is saying in terms of the front end of the year with having more teams events happening, this gives the various states and territories a chance to figure out, you know, who might be on their team if they haven't got it done so already, or let their teams get reps in with their armies that they're potentially taking in a team's format to allow them to be best prepared to go into the ATC at the start of May. But yeah, 100% agree, man. Like, back end of the year is packed, like, for New South Wales. Like, I'm noticing other states are a bit more, like, Victoria's a bit more front-heavy with terms like Radicalism. They had strength in numbers. A few other tournaments. Queensland, very similar, but they've been, as you said, going nuts with the teams events. I think they just had the Interclub Team Australia fundraiser event last weekend as well, which was, I think, you know, several teams from multiple clubs, which was amazing to see from them. But
and that was my team that won that. So
nice.
You know,
Ethos.
Yeah.
Nice. So whilst we do mention Down Under 40K circuit, we've mentioned OCC. Do you want to tell us a bit more about the OCC? Because I know you're quite heavily involved there as well, Ben.
Yeah, so basically, the OCC is something that is a initiative that Diffie has brought over to kind of be the ambassador for GW, to give that connection. As we've all seen the last two years or so, GW has suddenly decided they're going to start doing events. And by all means, I've heard, you know, obviously, you know, it's a little different terrain format to what we play on over here, and different meta and stuff like that. But from all what I've heard, they're actually like a really cracking actually well-run convention style events. And basically what they've done is they want to create, getting more involved and kind of champion the gaming side of it a lot more. And part of the stuff they've done is they've now taken that GW Open stuff over to Europe as well. But they've also, what they've done is they've done something which is like, they've made it so it's like it's a token, kind of like a, you know, almost like the IGC. You apply for a token and you go through these invitational qualifiers towards the end. Now, this is something that got kicked off, you know, with very little notice in Australia, and really, to be honest, it wasn't really much more notice in the rest of the world. So props to Diffie and, you know, the GW guys for even just getting it happening for 2023. But basically, in Australia, the OCC was the Oceanic Champion Circuit. Basically, the best way to kind of encompass it is the fact that any event can apply to be part of that circuit. There is like a kind of like a cost per ticket for the player to come in. Those funds, if not for profit, none of that goes to Diff, OCC, or DW. All those funds go towards funding the winner of the eventual Melbourne one to go to Atlanta. So basically, let's just talk about Down Under 40K in a vacuum. If you win the Down Under 40K major, you get a golden ticket to the invite in Melbourne, which is in September. Congratulations to Alex, the Greek. Because he won Dice Arcade. That was an OCC qualifier. He's already at the invite for that.
Yeah.
And so and if you win, obviously that's self-funded. Nothing goes towards that, but the money that the tournaments are giving, kind of from the ticket sales that are going towards the OCC, where the plan is the winner of the championship in Melbourne gets flown over to Atlanta in October for free of charge, paid for by those events, with a chance to represent Australia and obviously themselves at the big final at Atlanta, which is pretty exciting. Another thing that's worth noticing as well is ANZTC, which is the team championship, which you mentioned earlier, Scotty. The winning team has to nominate one player, can nominate one player for a self-funded ticket to Atlanta, which means they have to pay to go.
Okay.
It's a bit different, but it does mean that they, however, are eligible to kind of get in there as well. So it's pretty exciting. It's another way that what I think is with like the Down Under 40K circuit, which if anyone's ever heard that, very very much links New South Wales together and creates a narrative within a very very busy state for 40K, which is pretty amazing. What the OCC does is I feel has given Australia a link to the rest of the world, and a pathway through. Kind of it's still a lot of kilometres to travel to get over there. It's still a long path. There's still a lot of good players you've got to beat to get there. But there is an opportunity now to get that kind of like golden ticket, yellow brick road over to the States to kind of represent Australia, but like represent it through under an official banner too, which I think is pretty exciting. So yeah, big props to Diff for spearheading this. I've been happy to be involved, being New South Wales rep anyway, and heavily involved in New South Wales just stuff in general, regardless of if I was rep. Was really nice to be asked, and GW have been pretty good in supplying with some some pretty good product in return for those, to give out to the communities who want to be a part of the OCC. So there's some pretty good incentives. So if you're ever interested in talking about that, or you're an event in New South Wales and want to get part of the Down Under 40K circuit, don't hesitate to drop me a DM. And we can try and get some stuff sorted. I think we're in a bit of a golden age, in my opinion, in 40K in Australia. I think which was really highlighted by Team Australia winning last year, the WTC. I think we were already pretty, the momentum internally was really there. Now externally, in the world looking in at us now, like it's a real golden age and a real time for everyone to grow, and really exciting. Even from anyone from someone who's just a guy who plays down at some RTTs, to a guy who's running up, events and stuff like that. It's all very exciting. So
yeah, 100% agree. Like, and both, it's important to mention, both you guys are heading over in August as well with Team Australia. Which is awesome. And, we're going to be watching over here with bated breath to see how you guys do over there. So really excited, really hoping Australia goes back to back and really shows the rest of the world that Australia can swing it with the best in terms of how we play 40K. So yeah. But other than that, let's talk a bit about the Down Under 40K Major, and we're going to start off with terrain maps. So I'm going to pull these up on the screen for everyone to reference. So first up, we should have, if it decides to link, which it should be doing. There it goes. Okay, so we've got the mission. So you're running 6 rounds for 105 players, which is a heck of a lot of terrain. It's a heck of a lot of tables. And it's important to mention, it's at the Medowie Social, I believe, in Medowie, which is around Newcastle in kind of central close New South Wales. So have you kind of, like, I can see there's the 6 missions selected. So you got 13, 22, 11, 23, 33, and 12. So I'm guessing you haven't got like a set order that they're going to be in as of yet, but those are kind of the 6 missions you're going to be running for the weekend.
Well, we do have a set order within reason. Like we probably have, I don't know if we've released that yet, but we we do have look, we're going to try and keep it so you don't have to move as much terrain, but we're going to make sure that there's differences there. We'll try and make it as convenient for the players as we can. We've still got work to do in terms of actually putting measurements and grids of that to make it easier to set up for the player. So that's definitely a thing. We have definitely discussed the order of it, but maybe have not actually mentioned it. I don't think with the missions that we've got and the terrain format with the maps, I think that obviously matters a little bit less in this sense. But we will definitely be releasing that. That'll be on the social media before we get into the event. So
yeah,
just mission 13 6 times in a row. Data scry. Let's do it.
Yeah, data scry.
Everyone's favorite, right? Score 2, score 3, score more. So funnily enough, let's start with data scry in terms of the map. So by looks in the center line, we've kind of got 4 ruins, and then kind of towards the 2 corners, top left, bottom right, we've got some containers as well with some vents towards the center. And then kind of in each deployment zone, you've got 1 ruin that's just kind of half in, half out towards the left-hand side of the deployment. And then another that's fully in that is partially on the backfield objective. We do also have another variant that instead of having the those actually might be forests on the first one. The second one is the vents, I should say. So
which they're playing as forests as well. So they do have difficult ground just to make everything streamlined and easier to function throughout the whole event.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, so we appreciated that with our terrain setups and just in general, like in a lot of events, even though the terrains, we can show you a couple of tables. There might be a couple of bits that might be very variable just within terms of what ruins you get and stuff like that, it won't be too variant, especially at 105. That's put us in a pretty good spot now. In terms of table numbers and of what we've got when we did our count. But what we wanted to make sure is that the actual pieces had no keyword difference when we put them down. Just say we don't have enough, we didn't have enough forests and we had to put vents there. And that actually makes a huge difference in the way the game plays, rather than if something is rather just a right angle or a box. Do you know what I mean? That's kind of the way we felt about it. Plus, we find that sometimes, after playing a few events myself, and I think we've all heard the story of, I thought we were playing it like this, but it turned out we aren't actually playing it like this. And then all of a sudden that person goes off, excuse my language, round 4, they realise they've just played the vent, they've just played the vents with difficult ground, but their opponent weren't. Do you know what I mean? That kind of stuff. So it's just, we want to make sure that the rules are kind of, even though they're awkward shapes, that's kind of the thought process behind that.
Yeah. So just so that we're kind of getting a good understanding of what's going on in terms of the frame mats, would I be right in saying that you've got those 3-story full line of sight blocking L's along the center line of the table, and then you've got the 2-story ones more in the deployment zone with the windows, or is that a bit different for the Mission 13 map?
No, so if we're looking at 13 there, we'd have the big blockers will be the real skinny ones. I'm pretty sure. I'd have to double check my keywords, which I don't have on me here, obviously. But we do have. So one thing that's worth noting is that we are using the small WTC style Ls, which have the windows in them. And then we're going to use we'll have some of them will have the big L's on them as well. Okay. But you know what I mean? We only have a limited amount of those big L's and stuff like that. So we are there. It'll be what you'll find is those bottom back end tables for the last the 5 tables, I would say, will be still the same density. You might not just have the exact same bits on them, but the others will be pretty spot on.
Yeah. So. Cool. So Alex, considering you're playing, what do you think of the terrain layout for Mission 13 that we're looking at here?
So I think one thing that I've noticed in all the layouts, they do give you ample space to hide, so it prevents a lot of alpha strike. I think that's something that they had as a clear intent going into it. There is also a lot of staging pieces for melee, so that's one thing that strikes me immediately. Obviously, it's situated more on one side, so you kind of have this clockwork clockwise effect going on when people are jumping from terrain to stage. But looking at those pieces as an example, those ruins in the center, those two L's, they make it really good for things such as Warp Ritual, being able to hide behind it and being able to achieve that. But also, not only that, it makes it really good for staging and being able to move through. I think Breachable is going to be key here because, as you can see, a lot of the lanes that prevent movement penalties will be around moving through river ruins and getting everything going through that way as well. So it'll be interesting to see. I think, Breachable is going to be really key. I've brought as you know, probably a whole bunch of vehicles again that don't have Breachable. So, and a lot of them are melee this time. So we're going to see how I go with it, but it's going to be a blast.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I like how it kind of also creates, like, looking at Data Scry, because you've got 4 objectives on the center line. It does give you ample coverage to be on the objectives as well in terrain or being obscured or out of line of sight if you place your models correctly. So I do like that as well. People with forward deploy armies, I think this one might be one where it's allowed, so I'm a bit foggy, but I reckon that will help forward deploying armies. But then also with the Breachable, if you're run into a melee army, forward deployment maybe not the best thing to do going into it.
Yeah, and one thing to note as well on this map, it basically operates similarly as what Space Marines do, in the sense that troops will actually get you the objective secured at the start of the command phase. So not to remove that out of the play, that's going to be a huge game changer. It's not something that just benefits Marines on this map. So we'll probably see that other armies are able to obviously capitalize on that and get some value.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so let's move on to mission number 22, which is table quarters for this one. 5 objectives, score 1, score 2, score more. Again, very similar philosophy from mission 13 to mission 22. And again, definitely see what you've done there, Ben, in terms of like what you're saying by trying to minimize the amount of movement of terrain. Because you've got the forest in the center, kind of on that diagonal line from top left to bottom right. You've got those L's still in roughly the same spot with another 2 L's on the other sides of the forest, with each L kind of protecting one objective in the top left and bottom right hand corners. And then once again, you've got one ruin that's on your home objective in your deployment zone, and one that's kind of half within your deployment zone, half in no man's land. So thoughts, gentlemen, on this one?
This one here is, to me, it's just the mission, right? But it's the Alpha Strike melee map, right? Because what you have is, from those semicircles from one side to the other, instead of a regular map where you have 24 inches gap, you actually have an 18-inch gap. More importantly, if you look at those corner points on each one, from one corner to the next, there's only a 14-inch gap. So being able to, even with that -2 to movement, utilize to make it to the enemy is going to be really good. I know Sam has already mentioned something about, Desolation Marines. This is the map you probably want to face them on. 100 where they're going to be hiding. You just got to deploy accordingly and make it work. Yeah,
100%. Actually we got By11 in chat, who is our good mate of ours. He's asking, Ben, have you reached out for feedback on terrain? You reached out for feedback on terrain prior to the event and had beta maps. What were some of the changes or comments that you made to the terrain, or any comments you got back about the terrain?
Well, that's a super good question. I think that there's kind of two specific answers I can give to it, and one's kind of like a bit of a kind of conceptual thing, and one's a bit more precise. So, the more conceptual thing is the fact that the more feedback we gathered from it, and all feedback is useful, even the stuff which is, I hate it. Do you know what I mean? And as long as there's a reason, why, you can kind of collate that and find patterns. But I think that really what you find is, if there's no actual when a meta is the way a meta is, right? With Arcs of Omen, is like there's a lot of go first. I'm really interested to see what the go first win rate is in Arcs of Omen, and about by the time we hit the balanced data state, because I actually think it's going to be quite high, and I feel like there's the Alpha Strike in like if you look at like, you know, Alex, for example, let's just talk about your New South Wales Masters list, or even your Uprising list to a certain extent. If you needed to send it, you had all the tools to make sure you could send it. If you had the opportunity to close that game off early, that's what you were doing. And I think that represents a lot of what Arcs of Omen is about, certainly more so than Nephilim. And I think there's only so much you can do in a game of 22 or whatever, how many bloody factions there are, you can do to actually balance that meta out. So a lot of the feedback we heard was, you know, it benefits melee armies really heavily, and stuff like that. And then we played around with a lot of the stuff. And I've got to be honest with you, there's a lot of people who have done maps here, probably on the chat, and people who listen to this in the future, et cetera, who have done maps and made them before. And they are, you can imagine them being hard, but when you actually get into the nitty gritty and you're doing, and Dale will attest, Dale took a lot of this workload for this, being the CAD man, surveyor and stuff like that himself. You can really get yourself into a knot, and you can get there's a lot of analysis paralysis. I'd say it's probably like a lot of it when you get into it, and you get to the point where you can't actually keep everyone happy. And in a meta which is so killy, we figured that we don't want to allow people to sit on, you know, fully enclosed on an objective, right? We don't want that, but we don't want them to, you know, stand all the way out in the open. And we made sure we picked our missions specifically, because we all know that some missions in 9th edition are, like, for example, some Dawn of War missions are really, really hard to actually. It feels like you need another 2 or 3 pieces of obscuring terrain on Dawn of War, right, to feel like it's a legitimate thing. So yeah, I think really where we went with it was we listened to what we did and we took as much of it as we could on board, but there had to be a compromise between where the Adelaide style terrain shape fits into a board, which is like, they're massive, right? Some of those rooms, they're huge. And a balance between actually being able to, you know, making sure that people can move their knights, people can do this, and, you know, they might not be able to traverse everywhere on the board, but they can traverse they can get everywhere on the board. They might not be able to go every single, you know, direction they want to. Yeah. So yeah, you know, like, everything was useful. We don't ask for feedback and get salty about it. There's a reason you ask for it. It was definitely a huge task. So I really hope it goes down well. We've had good feedback since we've done the changes. We've had really good feedback since we did the finer tweaks. There is a little prize, like a small prize on one of the maps that someone might notice. And the first person to message the page or mention to either Dale or I, because only Dale or I who know about it at the moment. If anyone mentions to one of us that they see that and they've got a question about it, the first person to mention us, we'll buy them a beer. So, yeah.
Love it.
And we ain't telling you. I'm not going to give you any more hints than that. And Dale's in the chat, so he'll know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, cool. All right, so now we're going to jump up to, if my screen decides to want to play ball with me, mission number 11. So this one, you hammer and anvil style deployment, your 6 objectives, but it's score 1, score 2, score more. This is the mission that it's one of the 2 in Arcs of Omen Nephilim that a lot of people didn't like playing on, because this is the one where you've got to hold something outside your deployment zone to get CP. So if we look at it, you've got the forests kind of top and bottom of the center line going from deployment to deployment, with the L shapes in the middle as well. Then on the off center, so kind of on the right side of your deployment, so bottom left, top right, depending on deployment zone, you've got the other L there. Then in your deployment zone on your home field objective, you've got a ruin. By looks there, you've got some containers on your bottom right or top left, and then another ruin on the opposite side closer towards the deployment line, going into no man's land. So again, you know, personally, I like that layout. It gives you enough kind of staging. The one thing I would mention, and you guys can jump in here what you think about this. This one is the shooting man's gallery mission, because you've got those nice open fire lanes, but they're through the forest is the only thing.
I don't know about that. I think, you know, the objectives are pretty well covered. aside from, two exceptions on there. So you're not going to be able to shoot the enemy off if you're wanting to take them off 8 points of primary a turn. As long as they have the army and the units that can actually just sit safely inside those ruins, they're going to be able to do that. So what you're going to have to do is definitely get your melee to push through that and get Deep Strike to come in and get angles or whatever you might be. Obviously, the angles are a bit harder on the home field objective, but for everything else, you can easily get angles.
Yeah,
and maneuver around and do different things.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. What are your thoughts, Ben?
I don't have too many thoughts on this. All I can tell you is, if you've ever done maps before, Hammer and Anvil seems like the easiest prospect until you actually do it. And you go, and it's just, there's so many little nuances, and especially in relics. If it's scouring, there's less nuance in it. Because it is how it is in the scouring, right? You're just very close to each other. You're on top of each other. That's just happening. You can't really do much about it. In relics, it favors passive armies. Like there's no ways around. There's no point beating around the bush there. It favors passive armies. So we want to try and make it traversable and encourage it for interaction on that mission. I think. I think that's basically kind of where we sat with it. So
yeah, for sure.
It's a pain. Relics is a pain of a mission. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah. So the map does not change at all when you get into the scouring. So it's pretty much the exact same setup for both. So you may see these missions back to back, quite possibly.
You may do. I think like with the scouring, is it from a mission perspective? I tend to put it in a few packs. I do for events, and people would know. I know that the Greek knows this, but I think it's a very polarizing mission, and I feel like I feel like it's polarizing enough that you have to plan for that mission in a list writing. In the list writing stage, at least have some sort of thoughts and go, what happens if I run into this matchup on the scouring? And I think that's a really important thing too. That's why I think it's a good mission in a 5 or 6 round format. So
yeah, I definitely agree. The only real change is that ruin that's kind of closer towards the deployment line gets pushed into no man's land a little bit. That's the only change. So very little change there. Circus 199 seems to have already picked out the thing in the mission packs there, Ben. So
yeah, Jack. Someone's already messaged the page about it. Someone who's already watching. If you look, Dale already said, Jack Tin in Queensland. Yeah, he's already messaged about it. Yeah, it didn't last long.
Oh yeah, Queensland doesn't count though. It's still on. Don't worry.
But yeah, just want to shout out to everyone in chat joining us. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Also, Eric, the Alien Majesty, thank you for the follow, as well as Jossie FX. Hope you guys are enjoying the stream. It's great to have everyone joining us for this preview. So we're going to jump into the last set of maps, which is Mission 33, and of course I haven't got a full page. Mission 33 and Mission 12. Decides to want to play ball here with me, which it's not. So these are the kind of angled hammer and anvil deployment ones. And again, the maps are the exact same. So this is for Mission 33 and Mission number 12. I forget their names off the top of my head. I believe 33 is Secure Missing Artifacts. So that's the one where you move the objectives. And Mission 12, I cannot remember the name of...
Tear down their icons.
Tear down icons, cool. So, you've got those forests in kind of along that center line going from non-deployment edge, so long table edge to long table edge. You've got the L's angled towards the deployment zones with the containers lengthwise. So they're kind of like the shorter ends facing each deployment zone. You've then got the other L kind of sitting half in, half out of the deployments down on the bottom right or the top left, depending on which player you are. Then you've got, another ruin that's kind of a majority in, but a little bit out on your top left, bottom right, and then one covering your home objective partially that you can sit in there on as well. So, thoughts here. I would say this one does have some very slim firing angles that you can get on each player's deployment zone. So, if you kind of look where you've got that ruin that's not on the side where the home objective is, you can kind of draw a very small bead through to your opponent's open field on their home objective as well. So it does provide some fire lanes to challenge each other's home objectives on either side. But yeah, if there's any other thoughts you guys have of these ones, let's discuss it.
One thing to note is that mission 33, you do move the objectives. So that's going to up to a whole bunch of different things as well. It'd be pretty cool to see what people think of in accordance with their armies and what they think is going to be the best thing. So while you do have two objectives that are on the other maps are generally hidden, these ones, though, can be maneuvered and moved around. So while they're open at the moment, they can go back into that triangle ruin and go out more into the open. They can go right behind those container formations. Then you're going to be looking at things where these container formations are. I think it's pretty cleverly designed because some armies can use that to their advantage to hide away from the diagonal shooting lanes, but then some armies can't, because then if they're too tall, they'll be able to get hit. So it'll be interesting, like while you can hide, say, Kazakin or, Rough Riders or something like that behind it, you won't be able to hide Sentinels behind it because of their antennas and things like that as well.
Yeah.
So you need to keep that in mind when you're playing the game and utilizing that to your advantage.
Yep. Something else I think worth questioning, what do you think is more advantageous? Do you think it's worth, do you think the attackers got more of an advantage moving the first and the last objective, or do you think the defenders got the better position to be able to move the two at the same time?
I think it depends on the army. So as an example, if you were playing something like Necrons or AdMech, where you do really want to get to their line and get on a specific objective, you probably want to be able to make the first move and push that one as close to you as possible. That just makes the game a lot easier in that sense. But if you're a different army where you don't really care about that as much, then you probably want to just position yourself so you're in the right spot. And maybe you don't care about, attacker too much. You can probably just maneuver two others and, if you're shooting, get two more objectives out in the open or whatever you might need to do.
Yep. Okay, cool. Overall, I really love these maps. I'm starting to love that we're seeing more events do maps, and I like that we've done them like that. I've seen them done like this because way back last year around April, May, I know Ben, you were there. Alex, I'm pretty sure you were there as well at the Maitland Team Champs. Like having the WTC ones that were measured to the inch and getting them right were a bit cumbersome to get it all right. Whereas I like these ones where it's not necessarily like, okay, you've got to do it to the millimeter, but you can kind of like roughly ballpark, okay, this is where it should be, this is where it should be, even though it mightn't be exactly to the millimeter. It means that it gives a bit more opportunity for, it doesn't take time out of the round or as much time out of the round to set up the terrain if they're not back-to-back rounds, So that's something I do appreciate, and we're starting to see that more and more as well. But I reckon that about covers it in terms of trains and missions. I reckon they're probably a good pick of missions. My favorite one is not in there, though. I love a good Death and Zeal. And I'm like, that mission isn't there. But that's all.
You almost got it.
Yeah, almost. There's other table quarters in there. That's fine. So I reckon for now, let's jump into the discussing a bit about the meta, shall we, gentlemen? Oh, and I've got to do something real quick. Gonna swap this around. There we go. So, 105 players. It's a large number of players, but the meta, I must say, is diverse. It is a very diverse meta that is happening for this weekend's tournament. So, we're going to go through a couple of super factions. We're going to talk percentages and stuff as well. So, the Space Marine super faction, we've got 22 players in attendance for 21% of the meta. We've got 7 Dark Angels, 4 Iron Hands, 5 Space Wolves, then 2 Ultramarines, 2 Salamanders, and 2 Imperial Fists.
Can I just quickly interrupt, Scotty?
Yo.
I was just quiet there for a second because I think what happened, we accidentally deleted someone. That we had a player swap So you can add a Black Templars onto that list, and we're at 106 players.
Good to know. So 106 now as well.
Yeah.
And awesome. And whilst we're still here, Will Milton from TNA coming in with the Prime sub. Thank you so much, my friend. Really appreciate it. But Black Templars as well, making that 23 players out of the meta.
Sorry, guys. I'll be back in 1 second, but keep going.
No worries at all, Alex. So really interesting to see a strong representation of Marines that's coming in about a fifth, and we've just jumped all cameras. So I'm now down at Alex. Ben is still at Ben's, and then Alex is in where I should be. That happens. That's all good, ladies and gentlemen. So we've got, for Imperium, we've got 20 players for 19% of the meta with 6 Astra Militarum, 8 Adeptus Custodes, 2 Adeptus Mechanicus, 1 Adeptus Sororitas, 1 Grey Knights, and 2 Imperial Knights. Then we've got the largest super faction coming in at 30 players, with 28.6% of the meta being Chaos, with 4 Chaos Knights, 6 World Eaters, 6 Chaos Space Marines of various legion. There's Alpha Legion, Black Legion, Iron Warriors, as well as an unlisted one in there as well. 8 Chaos Demons, 4,000 Suns, 1 dedicated Slanesh Demons, and 1 Death Guard. In terms of Eldari Superfaction, we've only got 8 players for 7.6% of the meta, with 2 Harlequins, 2 Asayani, 2 Eldari, 1 Yunari, and 1 Drakari. So really interesting to see that, factions like Drakari, Yunari, stuff like Harlequins as well have really decreased in numbers due to a lot of changes in the balanced data slates and such for them. So a little bit surprising to see stuff like Drakari drop so much to only being 1 player, but it might not be too surprising as well with the loss of Real Space Raiders and detachments like that and the benefits they would have gotten previously. For the Hive Mind Super Faction, we've got 6 players at 5.7% of the meta, with 5 Tyranid players and 1 Gene Stealer Cult player who is an absolute weapon of a pilot, being Eric. He knows how to wield them guys like nobody's business. And then you've got Xenos as your last super faction, coming in with 19 players for the last 18.1% of the meta, with 7 Tau Empire, 8 Orc players, 3 Leagues of Votann, but only 1 Necron. This is something I'm really surprised by, that Necrons, whilst they can do really well at the moment, there is actually hardly any Necron representation in the meta at the moment. So what are your thoughts of the meta overall, Ben, from your standpoint?
Well, I think you're right in saying it's balanced. I think, I say it's balanced. I think it's nice to see that the biggest representation is 8. All right, and even when you look at Marines, you've got there's a fair few Marines, but like 8 Orc players, Orcs are good, right? They've got a bit of a Necron treatment in terms of secondaries. It's crazy to see that they're that good. Do you know what I mean? And there's 8 of them coming, and I've got to be honest with you, I know a fair few of those Orc players, and they're good players too. Do you know what I mean? So, and 8 Custodes, I hate to say it's not surprising at all. How many Dark Angels did you say we had? 7
Dark Angels.
Yeah, so that's not surprising either. I'm almost surprised it's just 7, to be honest. But I think Chaos having that much representation actually shocked me. I didn't even, because I've been skimming through them all day, ever since I started getting them in early evening yesterday, just keeping an eye on kind of what's coming in. But I had no idea that there was actually that many Chaos players, 30 in total, which is just bonkers to me. Yeah. And 6 World Eaters is great.
I was about to say 6 World Eaters when their codex dropped it a month and a bit ago.
Love it. Yeah.
It's insane. These guys must have just gotten all their minis and right, I'm getting these guys done for the major. The question I would love to actually get an analysis on once the lists are live would be how many are actually running Angron.
Well, I'll tell you what we could do is, if you like, I'll almost make them live now. So on stream.
Yep.
And I'll let Alex can have a quick chat about how he feels about the meta. and stuff like that, while I have a look and see how many Angrons we've actually got. Because I know there's definitely one, because one of my friends is bringing one. So I'll make them live, and everyone can have a look. So that's pretty exciting. And then I'll have a look at some Angrons.
For sure. So, Alex, do you want to share your thoughts on the meta, my friend? And you're currently muted still, brother.
I'm good now, yeah?
Yeah.
Perfect. Sorry about that. So obviously everyone's really excited that there's 7 Dark Angels, 4 Iron Hands, and 5 Space Wolves in the mix. You know, we love some casual play. So getting in there right as the data slate, probably hits that weekend. So that'll be good to see. Aside from that, I'd love to see that Salamanders are there. I'm fairly certain I know who the 2 Salamanders players are. One of them is using my army, so that's good. I play tested it on this terrain. It slaps, but I just chose to hinder myself by a fair amount by playing a different faction. Eldari is pretty low. I think Eldari is actually in a pretty good spot for this terrain setup, so I think they will do some damage. The fact that there's not much of everything is interesting. I will say that I have playtested against the Yunari list. The Yunari list is fantastic. I'm a huge fan of it. We had a really close game where he did actually win by 1 point. So shout out to that player. I won't say who that player is yet, but obviously once everyone can check it out and they'll be able to see that. The fact that there's 5 Tyranids players is pretty surprising. Obviously they're not doing the best overall globally. However, in Australia specifically, they actually have a much lower win rate. One Gene Silicolds is also pretty funny. We all know who that Gene Silicolds player is. He's fairly casual. He hasn't played a game in a long time. So no need to worry. We're probably predicting like a 25% win rate for the weekend on Gene Stillers there. So that's all good. Imperium being 20% of the meta makes sense. Outside of Space Marines, of course. There's quite a lot of Custodes going, and I would hazard a guess that a lot of the builds are going to be pretty different. I'm hoping that there isn't too many of the 30 SAG lists, because I have played into that and it's terrible. You can destroy 650 points one turn and then 50 points the next turn.
Yeah. So
it's pretty scary there. Astra Militarum are obviously making waves right now, so they're going to be in a good spot. And then rounding off, if we're looking at the rest of Xenos and Chaos, Tau, still a lot of Tau. There's a lot of Orcs. These are factions that traditionally place really well, especially within Australia.
Yep.
Leagues of Votan would be cool to see one Necrons player who will guess who that person is. CSM is actually quite a bit, and to note what we talked about last time, there was actually only 1 CSM player and there was 0 Votan players at the last GT. So good to see that there's actually some of them now. 6 World Eaters, so they're coming out pretty strong. And I think Benny's just been able to check all the lists to see how many are attending. How many Angrons?
4 Angrons, believe it or not. Wasn't expecting 4. I had to go. That's why it took me so long. I had to check. I was like, surely I've miscounted this.
It's the rule of 1 anyway, mate. You're not allowed to have them. Only the first one. Only one guy can have them.
Yeah. Well,
he's a main character.
Imagine how many Angron deaths there's going to be on the weekend.
Oh my gosh.
We should have a tally for that. Whoever gets the closest Angron death count should maybe get a free ticket to an RTP.
We should actually do something about like what World Eaters player has Angron die the most. Yeah, you know what? We'll do that. We'll do that right now. I'll give a token prize out to the World Eaters player who Angron dies the most in the whole event. But I need like a proper tally of it. I can't just have anyone saying 15 times and just randomly making up. All right.
Yeah, I guess so. Something that I'm seeing in terms of the meta, it's surprising to see so many Space Wolves coming out of the woodwork. Like,
they're pretty strong.
Yeah, like it. We initially saw with Marines that, Dark Angels came to head really quickly after Iron Hands. Everyone thought Iron Hands were going to hit hard and fast like they did towards the end of 8th, but they really didn't hit as hard, whereas Dark Angels came out of nowhere and did the same thing that the Iron Hands were expected to do. So to see Space Wolves kind of work their way up there as well is not surprising. Like, I've seen them on the increase, but to see them more than Iron Hands in terms of representation is quite surprising. I agree that Custodes to be expected. The one that I'm wondering is how many players are running the 20 Wardens. That would be the interesting one to find out in terms of like how many 20-man Warden lists are present. Seeing that many Chaos Demons, so you're looking at 9 Chaos Demon players technically total. So that's the number 1 faction because I didn't roll Slaanesh Demons in.
Yeah, trust old George, I bet ya. He's put down Slaanesh Demons instead of demons. To make it hard for you.
Kinky shit.
He only runs BDSM armies, so that's his requirement. It's either Drakari or it's Slaanesh, nothing else.
Right. But yeah, so to see that many Demons players, and I will note, we've got a large number of players traveling interstate. We've got guys coming from Queensland. We've got Finn Decker, coming from New Zealand. We've got guys traveling from South Australia, guys traveling from Victoria. So this is really going to be like some of the best players from some of those states are coming down to this tournament. So it is going to be a stacked event, in my opinion. And so some of the lists that people are taking are definitely the best of what they can bring. The other one that I'm a little bit surprised about is seeing more Chaos Knights than Imperial Knights. That's the other one I'm a little bit surprised by.
I feel like Chaos Knights have a bit better play into the anti-marine kind of meta. With dread tests and things like that, they can kind of bounce it off a bit better. They also, to me, have slightly better secondary options. So I feel like they have some play. I think they're in a pretty good spot. They also have better flexibility in terms of armigers. Not armigers, war dogs, I should say. So being able to actually counter different things and adjust from there is pretty good. That being said, there is obviously within Imperium, I know at least for myself, I'm bringing some knights as allies, using the Arcs of Omen, the free slot that they give me. And who knows, there could be a few that would be doing that. Sisters are a popular choice for some knights allies as well. Custodes at times do it as well. So they have their Calidus as well as their Armiger Helverins backing them up. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll just note, Will in chat has just said Iron Hands are crap in this meta, lads. Okay.
But Will doesn't play, knights, so how would he know?
Oh.
He's an orc. He's been an orc player for years.
They can't get enough armigers, so they need all the big stuff. And the thing is the meta has so many things that can just dogpile damage onto one unit, and they can do it with speed as well. Just melt stuff, like beams, guard, everything. Like they can just dogpile so much damage into one unit now. So
yeah, 100%.
It's just hard to use those big fellas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to just cover off on the faction podium, technically Chaos Demons would be number 1 if we roll in Slaanesh Demons in there as well, but I didn't pick up on that in my rush this evening. So in terms of the top 3 on the podium, in first place we've got Adeptus Custodes, Standard Chaos Demons, and Orcs, all having 8 players, making up for 7.6% of the meta for each faction. We then have in second place Dark Angels and Tau Empire with 7 players each for 6.6% of the meta. And then in third place, Ash Militarum, Chaos Space Marines, and World Eaters each having 6 players for 5.7% of the meta. So overall, the faction podium actually makes up 56 players of the tournament for 53.3% of the meta. Well, it should be 57 players technically and a little bit higher in terms of the percentage. It's about 55%. That is a lot of players stacked up in the podium, lads.
Yeah, it'll be curious to see what is everyone's thoughts on the top 3 factions that you could see podiuming for the event.
Yeah.
Benny, do you have an idea?
It's hard because you've got to differentiate between strength of armies and the people playing them. So I think I'm going to put G-Steel Cult, even though there's only one of them. I think it's going to be on the podium.
Which player?
I do. Yeah, who knows? For the prowling adjutant himself, I think.
Yeah.
I do. There's some good demon players there, right? We're probably gonna be talking about 1 or 2 of them.
Yeah.
We already know that there's there's 3 national standard kind of, there's just 3 great demon players in that mix. So I think there's possibility you can see demons up there. I do think I don't know. I feel like Astra Mitar can still do some work on those tables. People say it's a melee dominated thing, but I think Astra Mitar still have the tools to get around the board and get stuff done. So I think I'm going to go with Demons, GC Occult, and I think I'm just going to go Dark Angels because I've already seen a couple of people who are running Dark Angels.
Okay.
So, hang on a sec. I've just forgotten. I'm going to take Chaos Demons out and put Space Wolves in there instead.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Because we both... I know who also is playing Space Wolves.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I don't blame you.
And obviously, everyone can see the lists now. Anyone who's in chat can see the lists now, but I've already seen that list. So, yeah. So, yeah. I don't have to say any more than that. You'll all see it. We'll all see it in the next 20 minutes. So.
Yeah. I might go next. So in terms of the three that I pick, I'm gonna pick some interesting ones here. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Adeptus Sororitas up there. We both know there's only one player, and we know who he is, and he's an absolute gun of a player too. I wouldn't be, I'd be remiss to not throw Iron Hands in there. I am playing Iron Hands myself at the moment, so would like to see them podium. Maybe not first, but I'd expect could see them do third. But then I would also back Orcs as my third pick. I think Orcs are in a really good spot, as you were saying, Ben. And there are some absolute great pilots on Orcs that have jumped onto them this season. One being Mr. Joshua McMillan in New South Wales, who really does know what he's doing with lists. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see Orcs sitting up there as well.
For me, I'm thinking, keep it simple. These are obviously the strongest ones right now in the game. Imperial Fists, Thousand Suns, and Tyranids. I'm joking, but I'll be honest. I think Orcs are in a really good spot, and I think they're really good favored for the tables. I think Gene Steel Cults is also obviously in a good spot there as well. But you also can't deny that Dark Angels are just absolutely bonkers right now. But realistically, I'm just going to say and try and cheese it by saying any of the Space Marines could have a good go there. Space Wolves, Iron Hands, Dark Angels being the preferred. Good on there being a Black Templars player as well. Hopefully they brought some Desolation squads so that they can devout push so they can pop out of terrain, shoot someone, and then pop back in, which will be pretty funny. Get that line of sight and then just cheese it. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, cool. Well, gentlemen, we've talked about the meta. Let's jump into hitting some of these lists that are gonna be available to us to see. Actually, we want that one up. So first up, I'm gonna just pull it up on my screen. I believe we've got Finn Decker's Chaos Demons list up first. So I'm going to walk you through it, and then we can kind of discuss it a little bit. He is running Elites as his compulsory choice. He's obviously got the obligatory Bloodthirster that's got Angarth, the King of Blades with Devastating Blow, Indomitable Onslaught as the Warlord as well. Then a Fate Skimmer with Bolter Change, Infernal Gateway, Retinue of Horrors, and Staff of Change as well. Scarbrand and a Trance Weaver with Hysterical Frenzy. Then in troops, 4 units of 10 Demonettes with Demonic Icons and Instruments. And then 3 units of 3 Fiends. And then we also have got, I believe, just swapping that over as well on screen for you guys. We've got a unit of 3 Flamers, then 2 units of 5 Fleshhounds, and a unit of 5 Seekers with a Demonic Icon, Heart Seeker with the Instrument of Chaos in there. 2,000 points, 4 CP. So Finn is traveling over from New Zealand for the tournament. What do you guys think of his list? Like, from what I've seen, it's a very different list, but it still has some of the popular pieces that we're seeing around at the moment.
Look, obviously, Matt Morrisoli is a very good player. He writes really good. Oh, wait, sorry, we're talking Finn. Sorry. Yeah, my bad. Yeah, I got that wrong. That's my bad. Sorry. Similar lists, so it's hard. But obviously, it's a strong list. It brings all the good stuff. It has a lot of mobility. I think it plays these tables really well. It has a lot of breachable. Has a huge volume of attacks. Has some really good passive objective play as well with some of the secondaries. So Yeah, you can't really go wrong with these lists. It has opportunities to be able to use Warp Ritual as well. Has the availability to have 70 something attacks with Seekers, with extra AP on 6s to wound, which can obviously just trap people. And I think that's probably one of the better ways to deal with some things in the game right now, such as Dark Angel Terminators. So yeah, pretty good list. Don't know where he got it from, but yeah, did well.
Yeah.
Tell you what, he's got what's one thing about Demons lists at the moment that I think like a kind of trend seems to be going is they pack out all their HQ slots. You'll see a couple of different flavors. They'll always take all 4, and then you just see so many MSU units, and every single one of them is fast. Like they're all fast. There's loads of, there's just so many units. It feels like in a Demon army.
Yeah. There are, definitely. The one thing I will say, though, I did miss this. So it's only 3 units of Demonettes and 1 unit of Pink Horrors. That is the one thing I did miss there. And we do have Ads Napier in chat saying, back players, not armies. Put a carton on the GC. Oh, my gosh. Napier, you crack me up. I can't even say it for crying out loud. It's cracking me up that bad. Put a carton on the GSC player's head. Probably safe bet. You get to keep the carton. Oh gosh, Napier, absolutely hilarious there, bud. All right, that kind of threw me off there for a second, gents. All right.
He's done.
He's done. Yeah, it's been a long day.
I think Napier gave you a carton too.
Oh gosh. All right, next up in terms of lists, we've got Mark Purana, I believe is how you pronounce it, from South Australia. Maybe if Ben might correct me if I mispronounced it.
Caruana.
Okay, thank you, my friend.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's like marijuana, but just Caruana.
All right. He's actually...
I think you've got that really wrong, but that's what I'm just going to say, all right? So...
Alrighty, we'll go with it. So he, and you mentioned this in the chat as well before stream, that he is actually the captain for Team South Australia this year. So
he's running... and he's a champion lad too. He's a great player and a great guy. So
yeah, for sure. So he's running a fast attacker is his compulsory slot with Goth Orcs. Ka-U-Ana. Okay, thanks, Napier. Appreciate that. All right. So, we've got, with a HQ, we've got a Beast Boss on Squigosaur, with Arda's Nails, Beast Hide Mantle, and is the, with extra gubbins, so Relic and Warlord trait, sorry, as the Warlord. War Boss on Bike with Brutal but Cunning, the Killer Claw, and the Big Boss strat, so I believe Warlord trait Relic there as well. 1, 2, 3 units of 10 Beast Snagger Boys, 3 units of 10 Gretchen, and then also running a unit of 5 Commandos with a Power Claw on the Knob Boss, 3 units of 5 Squig Hog Boys, 1, 2, 3 units of 10 Storm Boys as well, with just choppers on the boss knobs, and then 3 Kill Rigs. 2 of them, all 3 have got Frazzle. 1 has got Squiggly Curse, the second's got Spirit of Gork, and the third has got Roar of Mork. 2,000 points, 1 CP. Gentlemen, what do we think?
This just feels like 2022 uprising meta. He's brought back the rigs. I haven't seen the rigs in ages. This is pretty cool to see. Obviously, he's got a lot of psychers in his list. He's going to be playing in the middle as much as possible. I can't wait to move block this baby, though, as much as I can. But, rigs can be hard to kill. I think they're a lot easier to kill right now in the current meta than they ever were, though. So, props to him. We'll see how he does with it. And, all the best of luck. Those Storm Boys are really good right now. I will admit that. I don't think he has anything to put them in, though, right? So he's just going to be moving, what is it? I think they move 14 plus auto 6 advance, so 20 then charge. So they're already in a pretty good spot, but I like being a bit of a, princess and making him 23 inches instead. But yeah, it'll be cool. See how he does. Goth pressure lists, they always generally perform pretty well, and Orcs are in a good spot.
Yep. I think this is MSU. This is really big MSU Orcs. you've got a lot of fast-moving orcs as well. So you got the Squeakhog boys, you got the Storm boys as well. So it provides a lot of opportunity to take various secondary stuff like banners or retrieve data quite easily. But also the orc secondaries are really solid too. Like get the good bits, being one of them.
Green Tide as well is really good for this list. I will say one thing: you can tell how this guy plays. Obviously he rolls a lot of ones because he's brought 0 bomb swigs. So you already know where he's at. He knows it. He's not risking it. He's not paying 5 points just to fail. So I've already worked it out, and I'm just going to try and keep him rolling ones as much as possible.
Yep. Any thoughts from you, Ben, in terms of this Goth Orc list?
Well, no, very similar to what I think Alex basically nailed it. I think it's going to be one of those things. If it comes at you, you think I can take this down. I've got all the goods, and just say you just don't. It doesn't quite go to plan, or you get your priorities wrong, or there's some sort of you mathed yourself out or something like that. You could be in big trouble. If this gets into you without you getting rid of enough of it before it gets there, I think it might be could be a rough afternoon.
Yeah, it's definitely got like even the Gretchen to just sit in the backfield and get onto those objectives like pretty quickly as well when necessary. When you're just flying other units, it's I definitely think it's threat saturation. 100% agree. All right, so next up we're going to be looking at Paul Gurney's list from Ethos as well. He's running Iron Hand Successors Space Marines with Master Artisans and Long Range Marksmen. For his Arcs of Omen detachment, he has taken a Lieutenant with Power Fist and Combi Melter. With the Rights of War Warlord trait, a Primaris Tech Marine as the Warlord with target protocols for the Warlord trait there. 2 units of 5 Infiltrators with Helix Gauntlets, pretty obligatory at the moment now as well. 2 units of 5 Vanguard Vets with Jump Packs. 4 Shields and Lightning Claws with Shield and Power Fist on the Sergeant. The classic Relic Contemptor Twin Volkite with Cyclone Missile Launcher Dreadnought. With the Merciless Logic Warlord trait as well. 4 Servitors, which are no Force Org slot. Then 3 individual Multi-Melter Attack Bikes. Then 3 individual Land Speeder Tornadoes with Multi-Melter Assault Cannons. 3 units of 5 Devastators, 1 with 4 Las Cannons, the Cherub, Combi Melter, and a Thunderhammer on the Sergeant. The others have 2 Grav Cannons, 2 Multi-Melters, Cherubs, Combi Melter, and Thunderhammer on the Sergeants as well. For transports, he's got the Terramite Drill with Twin Volkites, and then the Fly, he's got a Stormhawk Gunship with missiles, Las Talons, and Twin Assault Cannons as well to round out his list at, I believe it is 1998 points and starting on 1 CP. So
I love this list.
Yeah.
It's just so different, right? But it still relies on the same Iron Hands principles, doesn't it?
Yeah, I played this actually.
Different stuff in there. Have you?
Yeah, I played it at Gladiator Gaming. It's a really strong list. It does work. It does work. I had this fun part where I had like my Rust Stalkers not kill an Infiltrator squad, and that just kind of changed things by I think 12 VP in that one game, which is a bit crazy. In that one turn, I should say. So that was a bit nuts, but it's a really good list. I like it. I think the Relic Contemptor is something that's an absolute workhorse. I really like the Termite Drill. Obviously, it does have a risk, and obviously, Paul's a smart player, so I think he would understand this risk and operate accordingly. But if there's an army that does have that Alpha Strike potential, and despite the terrain maps and setups, and they can still make it to the enemy, you obviously just don't put as much in the Termite Drill. You probably put 1 unit in there, have that come up, but then you kind of have a bit more models actually on the field that can actually then do the push later on in turn 1 and actually do some damage, so you can clear off a lot of that. So we'll see what happens though, but it is a good list. It's really good fun. Paul did really well at Gladiator team with this list as well, so props to him. And as Napier says, it's can we do some more net lists? Yeah, Iron Hands are Iron Hands, right? You can't help it. I think there's others that are running guard and all these other things, which are just yuck. So
Yeah, no, I quite like it. It's an interesting take, as you were saying, Alex, in terms of the Iron Hands. I run a single multi-melter attack bike in my current Iron Hands build. So I really do rate them, particularly for just a cheap unit to throw into Outflank as well, paying no CP to just bring it on turn 2 in a flank and just cause some havoc with it and really catch some opponents off guard, get some good angles. Both Devastator squads going the Termite drill to deliver those grab cannons and multi-melters where they are needed most. But I do think that you're right. There might be a moment where he'll want to put both in. The Vanguard vets are an interesting choice. I think that might be to help with the terrain maps and have some close combat rather than doing a wholesale Iron Hands close shooty list, which you're seeing a lot more people do rather than adding in some of this close combat potential with the Vanguard vets. I still rate Vanguard vets though. But yeah, Ben, do you have any thoughts?
On Vanguard vets or on the list in general?
On the list in general.
Well, it's like what Alex said. Those character dreads, they're so good, right? He looks like he smashed 3 CP on that, hasn't he? By the looks of things.
Yeah.
As well. So he's that thing does so much work. I played Sam Marshall at Uprising, and that was an unfortunate mission, and he went first. And that character dread, it's been a while since I faced it, like 2-3 years since I faced it, and then you just forget how annoying it is, right? Like to just get to. I was playing my sisters at the time, so it was very hard. I wasn't killing that thing. But yeah, you forget how hard it is to get to. It's crazy how that supplement's still. When you give Marines free war gear, who would have thought they'd be good? But it's crazy to think that supplement still has that really cool stuff still in there that you kind of forget about, and you play it 3 years later, and you're like, I forgot. Character dread. Still feels 9th edition, right? Even though it's 8th edition, it still feels 9th edition style. That's the kind of stuff you see. Then you can feel them doing it now, still. So.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so we'll move on to the next list that we have got, and we have got, I believe it is Mr. Ben Yeamans from Orange, who is running Viola Tau Sept. He is taking troops as his compulsory slot for his Tau. He's got a Commander in Cold Star Battlesuit with the precision of the Hunter Waller trait, 2 Fusion Blasters, a Missile Pod, Onager Gauntlet with the Shield Generator, Stim Injectors, and is the Warlord. Another Commander in Cold Star Battlesuit with Burst Cannon, the Advanced Burst Cannon, the High Output Burst Cannon, Missile Pod, and Shield Generator. In troops, he's got 3 units of, I believe that's 9, but I think it might be a unit of 10, Breaches. Then a Crisis Suit Brick that is 3-man strong, Fusion Blaster, Missile Pods, Plasma Rifles, and Shield Generators with 1 Marker Drone and 1 Shield Drone. Then a unit of, I believe that is 3 Stealth Suits with 1 Fusion Blaster on the Shazvaret with a Marker Drone in there as well. Times that by 2 Stealth Suit units. A Pathfinder team, 10-man, with 3 Rail Rifles in there with a Recon Drone, and the rest of the gear in there for the Pathfinders to have Marker Lights. 10 Vespid, a Hammerhead Gunship, just standard Hammerhead, not Long Strike, with a Riptide Battlesuit with Heavy Burst Cannon and Smart Missiles. Then 3 Devilfish with Gun Drones and Pulse Carbine. So really interesting list here from Ben. He's again, from Orange, he's a great bloke. He's the main TO of Battle in the Bush. And one of the main guys for the Friday Night Gaming Club out there. And yeah, he always takes interesting lists, and it's, he's taken another interesting list for Tau. So what do you gentlemen think?
Nah, it's illegal. No sergeant in the breach teams. All good. Just run 30 breaches down, and then that means that there's nothing to go into the Devilfish. So I'm happy. I'm already playing 600 points up.
I'll email in the yellow.
Nah, it's just a formatting thing.
Yeah.
BC.
He always does it. It does it every single time.
Yeah, it's good fun. No, it's interesting. So, look, let's be honest. This is something where some of the units are, pretty common right now for Tau, and they've got a bit of prominence. But I think the sept choice itself isn't. So, what that sept choice is giving him is obviously the ability to move turn 1 an extra 2 inches in movement. So, I'm imagining what that means. This is going to be doing some cool devilfish, combinations that to just like push through and do crazy stuff. So yeah, keen to see it. It'll be interesting, to say the least. I love Vespid as well. I think they're amazing at killing Marines right now. So I really want that to do well. I think obviously Dal is the better way for that because you can give them marker lights, you can give them +1 to wound, you can give them a whole bunch of other fun stuff like Hayun, so exploding hits. But yeah, it's just great to actually see Vespids coming out on the table. How I think it will play, look, it's obviously very mobile. I think you need a lot of mobility right now. There are obviously a lot of lanes that are blocked. So him having that extra 2 inches movement could actually make or break things in terms of line of sight. So let's see how that goes. And yeah, best of luck to him. Ben's a champion, and I hope he does really well.
Yeah. Any thoughts, Ben?
I love stuff which use different seps or different stuff I haven't seen before. So I immediately loved this when I saw it. It's great to see Ben out at an event. I know he's a super busy guy. Being massive, like a huge, like stalwart, like spearheading with Steve and Chris and all that from the Friday night gaming group. Doing like with a huge community out west in New South Wales. So it's awesome to see him and a heap of his lads. And there's a fair few of them coming over out east to us on the coast. It's really exciting to have them. Can't wait to have them all over. They've all brought some really cool, funky stuff. Like Ben's is just the tip of the iceberg of some of the stuff that these lads have brought. So
yeah.
I think like injecting like a really, really different crew like those boys into this meta here is just going to flip a few people around. It's going to be really fun. So
it's a really zesty list, which you would expect from a place called Orange. So
I like that. That's good there, mate. Good.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Yeah, I quite like it. It's a off meta build, but it's got some meta components as well. My question is, which is better for this list? Do we think Montcar? Do we think Kauyon is going to be better for this list to score points? Considering the you got the Devilfish in there with the breaches. We've seen Hayden Waldock on the Normal Blokes explain how he's been able to turn 1 get like almost max points on aerospace targeting, like by using Devilfish with breaches. Like it is possible on certain deployments. So do we think Montcar or Kauyon?
Still think it's matchup dependent, personally. Depends on what you're up against, and if you feel that you have enough of that kind of pressure where you can kind of play the mid really well, and if you can play the mid really well early on, and you feel the enemy is going to be kind of meeting you there, great, go for it. Go for Montcar, have a blast. But if you feel that you need to kind of just keep saturating at the opponent for a bit, and they haven't really got the tools to make it to you straight away, especially near your deployment, then I think Kauyon, you can't go wrong with it, right? And the redeploy alone is really good.
Yeah, for sure. And then we've got one more list, ladies and gentlemen, that we're going to look at. And that is, I believe it is Hugh Titchener's list from Victoria. He is also running Goth Orcs.
Hey.
So we've got 2 Orc lists that we're talking about here. So he's running...
Triple rig again.
Yeah. So Boss Zagstruck, a Weird Boy with Warpath and Fists of Gork, a War Boss with Combi, Rocket with Power Claw, Brutal but Cunning Warlord trait, and the Killer Claw. I believe that is probably also his Warlord as well. 3 units of 10 Beast Snagger Boys, 3 units of 10 Gretchen, 2 units of 5 Commandos with Chopper on the knob, 10 knobs, all with Power Claws and Choppers, being Truck Boys, in a truck as the transport as well. 3 units of 10 Storm Boys with Power Claws on the knobs, a Kill Rig with Roar of Mork and Frazzle, which is a red. He's got a yellow kill rig that's got Spirit of Gork and Squiggly Curse, and then a purple kill rig that's got Bite and Jaws and Beast Scent. So there's all 6 powers for the kill rigs there that he's taken. And then obviously a transport being the truck. 2,000 points with 4 CP starting. Gentlemen, what do we think?
Well, fun fact, you actually can't even target that purple kill rig because it's invisible for the whole game. So that's going to be really, good. And I want to see how he does that. But yeah, I don't know. Look, I'm surprised that everyone's bringing out the rigs again. This is really cool, but they're not only just bringing out 1 or 2, they're bringing out 3. So obviously there's either something in the air in, Octarius or, wherever orcs are fighting right now. But this is absolutely bonkers. I love it. I still think it has a bit of, actually a lot of forward pushing pressure with 30 Storm Boys. That's going to be crazy. Yeah, the thing is, so someone mentioned, didn't know you can choose to not take a sub faction. Luckily, Boss Zag's trucks, I'm assuming it is Goths.
Yeah, Hugh's got it listed as Goths in BCP.
There we go.
So yeah, no, definitely agree. It's interesting to see the triple kill rigs coming out, and I can see the similarities between this list and the one we saw previously. Like, it's still got the 6 troops in there, 3 units of 10 Beast Snaggers, 3 units of 10 Gretchen. It's got the Commandos as well. It's got Storm Boys. The only thing that differs is some of the characters, as well as the Squighog Boys aren't present in Hugh's list compared to the previous list we were looking at as well. But yeah, I definitely agree that it's good to see different units being taken. Like, when was the last time you saw 30 Storm Boys on the table for orcs? Like, it's quite interesting for me to see that, because I also don't have many orc plays in my local meta, so I still think that's quite interesting and fun to see that being taken. But Ben, do you have any other thoughts as well you'd like to add?
Well, shout out to Hugh. He's the only person who brought 2 tickets when prompted to buy a ticket. So just throwing money at us for that one. So refunded that pretty quickly. Yeah, no, he did say, look, I've done it heaps of times before. I think it's not the first time he's done this kind of thing. So shout out to Hugh. I think that it was really cool that we've kind of shown everyone, like we got a few interstaters, and then international from Finn as well, get a couple of those guys on. It shows you that, like, really, with the orcs being where they're at, and even just like, we talked about Ben's super different tower list. Like, there's people are really building that front heavy alpha stuff into their list, or at least building an opportunity to do that if it arises in certain matchups. So not necessarily the game plan, but yeah, there's just, it seems to be a common thing. I think, like, yeah, those Storm Boys are so quick, and I think that Goths, a few of the guys can get things like Death Skulls and stuff to work pretty well, but Goths, I think if it isn't Goths, it's like a wet fish, right? At the moment, I think so. Yeah, I think it's in combat certainly anyway. So I think it's great. Like, I'll be honest with you, I don't know. I'm not totally all across orcs. I'm good at facing them. I wouldn't know how to play them if I played with them. But yeah, they're definitely a handful at the moment. They score so quick, and they score like as quick as Necrons did Nephilim. It feels like the rate in which they score, and the speed they can traverse and start denying primary can be quite terrifying if you're not equipped to deal with that and screen.
Yeah, and I think those are also those 10 knobs with power claws and choppers in being truck boys. They're going to be able to get to you turn 1 as well. Yeah. So you're not only looking at the 30 Storm Boys they're going to be pushing out there. You're also looking at those guys there. You're also looking at 2 units of 5 commanders that are forward pushing. You're also looking at beast snaggers that are going to be inside kill rigs. And if you're playing on some of the terrain maps, it's a lot easier to get to the opponent as well. You're looking at a lot of pressure. And I think for people to be able to do this as well and operate effectively, it'll be really good to see how they operate just in that fight phase, because they're fighting not just in your turn their turn, but your turn as well. So a lot of them are probably going to be pretty speedy with it all. Probably suited to be playing to the clock, I would imagine. And yeah, it'll be good fun to see. There's going to be a lot of dice.
Oh yeah, 100% it will be. 100%. But yeah, that kind of wraps us up, ladies and gentlemen, for all the different lists that we're going to look at. You know, as we've said, there's a bunch of notable players. If I just want to rattle off a bit of a list that I've got here in terms of like players that we know are top players that are in attendance. Obviously, we've got Alex, who's going to be jumping in to play. We've got Adam Napier, Brody Middleton, Chris Wright, Damien Ridgewell, Eric Lathuris. We've already mentioned Finn. You got Jeremy Martino, Matt Morrisoli, Will Milton, Will Wyckoff as well is probably another player to keep an eye on as well. And Josh Brody kicking around. And also Nathan Meach from South Australia as well. He's a really good player too. So definitely a lot of diversity in terms of good players in the hunt for early points. But yeah, that's going to kind of wrap us up for the Down Under 40K major tournament preview. Ben, I want to give you the floor for a sec. Do you want to do any shout outs for what you guys are doing in terms of Down Under 40K, OCC? Floor's yours, my friend.
I'd love to. So one thing that we didn't mention in the pack is, which I can't believe I didn't put it in, especially after the fuss we made about it last year, was Renman. We will have Renaissance Man running at Down Under 40K. We treat that in terms of prize support and prestige from our personal events as high as first place. So that is one to look out for. So if you've got any more spare afternoons to do a little couple of touches of some highlights and stuff like that, to make sure you're up to standard to get some Ren Man. I've also got a cracking trophy for it, boys. I'm not going to show it to you. See it on the weekend. Yeah, we've also got that. Last year at the Down Under 40K GT, which was a 45-person GT last year, we brought out the Storm Surge cocktail, which was basically like a dark and stormy, but with a little bit of a twist in there. The old Storm Surge has never left the menu at Madawi Social. It's been that popular with locals and 40K players. So it will be returning again for the major, plus with maybe a couple of others. I do invite you on the Saturday evening. The whole venue is 40K exclusive all day, all weekend. So I do invite you on the Saturday night to stay and hang out with a lot of the crew. There's not really many other places in town anyway. But if you're staying locally, hang out with the crew, have some dinner, and have a few drinks or whatever. Also, let's not forget that Australian 40K loves a bounty, right? And we are no different at Down 40K. We've already got bounties. A big one that just went live on our Facebook, if you just tune in, is Knobs versus Chad Mech. I don't know if Knobs know this yet, but that is definitely a thing. Alex the Greek has put a beer bounty on every single Knob player's head, and there's actually a lot of them as well. So that was a big thing. So if you want to put a bounty on a mate or on someone or something or anything like that, message it down to 40K page. Let's get some bounties happening. To answer Adam, if we're getting some new cocktails, we'll definitely will be having some new cocktails. Will we come up with some 40K cocktails? We're going to be doing some. We've got a couple of lucky door prizes. We've got best dressed. So if you've got make sure you've got your Sunday best on or whatever you're usually wearing on the weekends. Especially on an April Fool's weekend, bring it along. Get on there. We'll be around. There'll be a lot of Down Under 40K shirts around, but you'll be mainly, if you need a judge, you'll be mainly looking for the bald, short guy. There'll also be a taller, bald guy to look for as well for judges, and there'll be Dale and everyone else around. If you've got any more questions about the event at all, even if it's just logistical stuff, like you don't know kind of how far you're up in the venue or anything like that, make sure you let us contact the page. We're very friendly. Look, I think that's all about covered. Stay tuned on our social media. There's a lot of stuff coming up. We'll start doing some posts just to let everyone know kind of what we're up to. Just on behalf of Down Under 40K and probably for the rest of New South Wales as well. We are really excited to have the interstate players come over to us for such a big event earlier on in the year. And obviously, we're looking at us boys down 40K, just looking forward to having everyone here. And make sure you tune into Scotty, because Scotty, we've got Jack on the floor. I actually had a quick game with Jack today. He's going to be streaming. He did a cracking job at Dice Arcade, and really looking forward to having him on. I think I'm not too sure who he's got joining with him. I think there might be rumours of Pommy Ben. There's rumours of Scotty's doing wonders, and there's a bit of this, bit of that. But there'll be some great coverage. And I'm pretty sure we've got. I think there's rumours of a Mr. Sam Lemon being involved in some sort of day or other. So who knows? But yeah, so he'll be there. So look, it's going to be a great weekend. We're really excited to finally have him streaming at the social to bring to everyone. It's going to be really exciting. And yeah, I just can't wait. Let's just cut. There's a lot of stuff to do. Friday night's always the worst, setting up. But when we're done, and we'll be feeling good about it. So
yeah,
can't wait to see you there.
For sure.
Do you want to just give a early congratulations to Damien Ridgewell for getting second place for the event, or do we save it for later?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what though, he's got to get second this time. I think it's actually going to be a little bit harder than the last two events, because we've got smaller people, but we've still got some big swingers in there. So I think that, I think second's going to be, if he gets second again, that's a huge achievement, because I think it's almost like, probably, Adelaide's massive, obviously, and he went for some big players at Adelaide, but I think where this is smaller and there's just as many sharks in there, it could be pretty spicy. So, but yeah, that's poor old Damien. He's gonna have to crack one soon.
Yeah, he's got it.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, as Ben was saying, we will be covering all 6 rounds of the Down Under 40K Major right here on the Australia's Tabletop Wargaming Network, live on Twitch. We'll have Jack, our man on the ground at the venue. We'll have Sam Lemon joining on commentary on Saturday, and I believe we will see if we get Pommy Ben on Sunday. If not, it may just be Jack solo. Might have to discuss some details maybe about getting Dale to give him a hand when needed as well, Ben, but we'll chat a bit more about that. And
yeah, I mean, it can be between Pete and Dale and Pommy Ben. We'll have it sorted. I'll just be on the floor the whole time, so it won't be me. But which I think everyone's pretty happy about anyway, to be honest. So.
But yeah, so I'll let you know that coverage will be starting from approximately 8:30 on Saturday and Sunday. I think it's 8:15 on Sunday. Bear in mind as well, for those of you internationally, here in Australia, we are changing daylight savings on the Saturday night. So it will be starting an hour later on the Sunday morning. So it'll technically be a 9:15 daylight time start, but it's an 8:15. So bear that in mind if you are watching internationally, to look up the Australian Eastern Standard Time instead of the Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time, to be aware of that. Before we go anywhere, again, thank you so much for joining us here. Thank you so much for listening to us on the Down Under 40K podcast. If you are listening to us there, or if you're watching this afterwards on YouTube, you can always find these live. Make sure you are following the Australia's Tabletop Wargaming Network socials, so you know that when these are popping up, we do post up the schedule of what's going on the network every Sunday, so you'll be able to know what's going on there as well. But gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your weeks to sit down, have a chat about the event, and get some people hyped about this weekend. I'm really excited to see how everything shapes up.
Easy done. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, for sure. All righty, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.
No worries at all, Ben. Thanks for joining us. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you to everyone who's joined us in chat. Hope that you have enjoyed the stream. And if you're not playing on the weekend, we hope to see you in chat with Jack on commentary with a few of the other network members. Hope you have a great rest of your morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And we'll catch you soon.